3 years ago, I lost my memory in a car accident. She said I was the murderer who killed her father. I believed her and pleaded guilty, going to prison. 3 years later, upon my release, I found a little girl on the street who looked exactly like me, calling her mom. Susan, explain this. Whose child is this? She clutched the baby tighter, her eyes darting away. Found it. I sneered. Is that so? How about we do a paternity test? The prison's iron gate slammed shut behind me. Standing at the entrance, I clutched a worn canvas bag containing all my worldly possessions, 800 yuan saved over 3 years, and a release certificate. The sunlight was blinding, and I squinted. 3 years. For 3 whole years, I'd been haunted by one question: did I really kill someone? My memory after waking from the accident is a blank. All I remember is Susan crying her heart out as she accused me. Bill, you ran over and killed my dad. Are you still trying to deny it? The bloodstains at the scene, the shattered headlights, the wounds on my hands. All the evidence pointed to me. I pleaded guilty. But 3 years behind bars made me recall many things. Like why I was on that road that night. Like why Susan was at the accident scene. And the most crucial point, I've been a clean freak since childhood, so there's absolutely no way I could have driven under the influence. Yet the blood test report from that time showed my blood alcohol content was severely over the legal limit. That doesn't make any sense. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Hey, Bob, it's me, Bill. Look into the details of that car accident 3 years ago, especially the blood tests and surveillance footage from the scene. Bob was my childhood friend and the best private investigator in this city. Bill? You're out? Bob's voice was tinged with surprise. Alright, I'll look into it right away. But find a place to stay first, don't wander around. After hanging up, I hailed a cab. To Yijing Garden. That was the love nest Susan and I once shared. Though 3 years have passed, I wanted to see how she was doing. After all, her father died because of me, and I owed her an apology. As the car drove down familiar streets, my feelings were mixed. What was Susan like 3 years ago? Gentle, kind, and always smiling. She would bring me late-night snacks when I worked overtime, stay by my bedside when I was sick, and give me the warmest hugs when I felt down. But after the car accident, she changed. She became cold, distant, and like a vengeful goddess. Perhaps the pain of losing her father truly transformed her. The car pulled up at the entrance of Yijing Garden. I paid the fare and was about to get out when I spotted a familiar figure walking out of the compound. Susan. She was still as beautiful as ever, long, straight black hair, delicate features, though she looked much slimmer than 3 years ago. What shocked me even more was that she had a little girl of 4 or 5 by her side. The child bore a striking resemblance to Susan, yet her eyes held a familiar shadow. My heart pounded wildly. This child. I hurried over. Susan. She stiffened at the sound of my voice, then slowly turned around. The moment she saw me, her face drained of color. Bill? How did you get out? My sentence is over. I stared at the little girl beside her. Who is this child? Susan reflexively pulled the little girl behind her, her eyes darting away. She's from the neighbors. From the neighbors? I crouched down to meet the little girl's gaze. She had eyes exactly like mine, even the tiny mole at the corner of her eye was identical. Little one, what's your name? I tried to keep my voice as gentle as possible. The little girl timidly glanced at Susan, then said in a babyish voice, My name is Daisy. I'm 5 years old. Daisy. My heart nearly leapt out of my throat. I looked up at Susan, her face drained of all color. The neighbor's child? My voice was calm, but my gaze was sharp as a knife. Susan opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Just then, the little girl suddenly broke free from Susan's grasp and ran to me. Uncle, you look just like me. She reached out her little hand, touched my face, then pointed to the corner of her own eye. Look, we both have this little spot. My eyes instantly welled up. This was my child. My daughter. Susan. I slowly stood up, my voice trembling. She's my child, isn't she? Susan took a step back, her eyes filled with terror. No, she really is the neighbor's. Enough. I cut her off sharply. DNA doesn't lie. You can deceive others, but you can't deceive blood ties. Bystanders began murmuring among themselves. Susan realized this wasn't the place to talk. Gritting her teeth, she said, "Follow me." She scooped up the little girl and hurried toward the residential complex. I kept close behind her. Inside the elevator, the atmosphere was stiflingly oppressive. The little girl looked at me curiously, occasionally reaching out to touch my hand and my face. "Mom, this man really looks just like me." Susan clutched her hands, trembling. "Daisy, don't say such things." The elevator reached the 18th floor, Susan's new home. I followed her inside to find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with exquisite decor, clearly worth a fortune. "Sit down." Susan set the little girl down. "Daisy, go play in your room. The grown-ups need to talk." The little girl obediently scampered away. Only the two of us remained in the living room. I sat on the sofa, staring at Susan. "You can tell me the truth now. She's my daughter." Susan remained silent for a long time before speaking slowly. "Yes." Just that one word struck me like a bolt of lightning. "I have a daughter. I'm a father. But I missed her birth, missed her growing up, missed the most crucial 5 years of her life." "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice choked. "Even if I was in prison, you had the right to let me know I had a daughter." Susan turned away, unable to meet my gaze. "Do you think the man who killed my father deserves to be my daughter's father?" The word stabbed into my heart like a dagger. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "Susan, I think it's necessary to reopen the investigation into the car accident 3 years ago." She spun around abruptly, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Reopen what? The evidence is solid. Are you trying to overturn the verdict?" "This isn't about overturning the verdict, it's about uncovering the truth." I stood up. "And starting today, I want to see my daughter. At least twice a week." "No." Susan shook her head vehemently. "I won't let her have contact with a murderer." "Murderer?" I sneered coldly. "Susan, are you sure I really caused that accident?" Her face paled further. "What do you mean?" "Nothing much." I walked toward the door. "I just think some things need closure." I pulled open the door and glanced back at her. "Oh, and this apartment must be pretty pricey, right? With your salary, you probably couldn't afford it." With that, I walked away without looking back. In the elevator, my hands were trembling. Not from anger, but from excitement. I have a daughter now. A lovely girl who looks just like me. But at the same time, I sensed something was off. Susan's behavior was too strange. Why was she so nervous? Why wouldn't she let me get close to the baby? And that house, it's worth at least $3 million. With Susan's salary as a clerk, she couldn't possibly afford it. Unless someone was secretly funding her. I pulled out my phone and dialed Bob. "Bob, besides the accident records, look into Susan's financial history over the past 3 years. Focus on her property holdings and bank statements." "Bill, what are you suspecting?" "I suspect that car accident 3 years ago wasn't as straightforward as it seemed." Bob was incredibly efficient. By the afternoon of the next day, he'd already delivered the documents to my place. I'm currently living in a small rented room in an urban village, paying $500 a month. Besides a bed and a desk, there's nothing else. It's a stark contrast to Susan's luxurious apartment. "Bill, take a look at these." Bob placed a folder on the desk. I found something really interesting. I opened the folder to reveal a thick stack of documents. First up were Susan's bank statements. For 3 years, her account received a monthly transfer of 200,000 yuan from a company called Stellar Investments. In total, she received 7,200,000 yuan over those 3 years. What kind of company is Stellar Investments? That was the crux of the matter. Bob lit a cigarette. This company only existed for 3 years, established precisely 1 month after your incident. Moreover, the company's actual controller is very secretive. I had to dig through several layers before finding the real owner. He handed me another piece of paper. Eason. I looked at the name, feeling a sense of familiarity. "Do you know this person?" Bob asked. I thought hard, and suddenly remembered. "Recognize." I jumped to my feet. Eason was Susan's college classmate and had been pursuing her. Even after she started dating me 3 years ago, this guy showed up several times demanding she break up with me. Bob took a drag on his cigarette. That explains it. To win Susan over, he spent over $7 million keeping her. Anything else? Yes. Bob pulled out another document. I've uncovered some new leads regarding that car accident 3 years ago. He unfolded a photograph. This is a screenshot from the surveillance footage that night. Look here. In the photo, my car had crashed into a roadside tree, and Susan's father Barry lay in a pool of blood. But this angle doesn't add up. I frowned. If my car hit like this, Barry should have been thrown away, not lying in front of the car. That's right. Bob nodded. I had a professional traffic accident investigator look at it. He said the scene suggests someone knocked Barry down first, then staged it to make it look like you hit the tree. My heart started racing. You mean someone deliberately framed me? It's quite possible. And I've discovered another issue. Bob pulled out a blood test report. Your blood sample at the time showed not only alcohol but also a drug called midazolam. What is midazolam? A potent sedative used medically for general anesthesia. At sufficiently high doses, it can cause complete loss of consciousness and even memory loss. My eyes widened. You mean someone drugged me and then caused the accident? Highly likely. Bob stubbed out his cigarette. And the one who drugged you? It was probably Susan. Impossible. I shook my head. Susan wouldn't hurt me. She loves me. Loves you? Bob sneered. A woman who loves you would take $7 million from another man, give birth to his child, and never tell you? I froze. Right, if Susan truly loved me, why would she take Eason's money? Why keep the pregnancy from me? Unless she never loved me at all. Unless everything 3 years ago was a trap she and Eason had set. No. I suddenly thought of a question. If Susan was involved in the plot to frame me, why did she give birth to my child? She could have easily terminated the pregnancy. Bob paused for a moment. I've thought about this too. There could be 2 possibilities. First, she still has feelings for you and can't bear to abort the baby. Second what? Second, the baby isn't yours. My head buzzed. What did you say? Bill, calm down. Bob pressed his hand on my shoulder. I'm just considering all possibilities. That kid might look like you, but it could be a coincidence. After all, DNA testing is the most reliable proof. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. You're right. I need to take the child for a DNA test. One more thing. Bob pulled out the final document. I found out Eason is hosting a business cocktail party at the Blue Ocean Hotel tomorrow night. Susan will be there too. I took the photocopy of the invitation, which read Star Investments' 3rd anniversary celebration. I'm going to check it out. Bill, are you sure? Showing up at an event like that, fresh out of prison. I don't care. I stood up. I need to figure out what really happened. Bob sighed, then I'll go with you. After hanging up, I sat alone in the dilapidated rental apartment, my mind replaying that night 3 years ago. Why had I been on that road? I remember it was Susan's birthday. I had planned a surprise, booked her favorite restaurant and bought a diamond ring, ready to propose. But during dinner, she took a call and said she had to handle an urgent matter, asking me to go home and wait for her. Then I lost my memory. Looking back now, that phone call was probably the beginning of the trap. I pulled out my phone and found Susan's number. After hesitating for a long time, I dialed it anyway. Hello? Susan's voice sounded exhausted. It's me. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. What do you want now? I want to see Daisy. I told you, it's impossible. Susan, she's my daughter. I have visitation rights. You don't. Susan's voice suddenly grew heated. You're a murderer. You have no right to see her. All right. I took a deep breath. Since you insist, we'll see each other in court. I'll request a DNA test. If it proves Daisy is my daughter, I'll fight for custody. You dare. What have I got to fear? I sneered coldly. I've already lost 3 years, I won't lose any more. With that, I hung up. The phone rang almost immediately, but I didn't answer. I needed to prepare for tomorrow night's meeting. The truth from 3 years ago, it was time to uncover it. The Blue Ocean Hotel is the most luxurious five-star establishment in this city. Standing at the entrance, watching the well-dressed guests come and go, I suddenly felt a pang of inferiority. 3 years behind bars had left me looking weathered, and the only suit I owned was one I'd bought 3 years ago, now looking decidedly outdated. But I walked in anyway. The cocktail party was held in the top-floor ballroom, and I followed the crowd up in the elevator. The ballroom was ablaze with lights, filled with clinking glasses and mingling guests. Standing in a corner, I scanned the room for Susan. Soon enough, I spotted her. She wore a black evening gown, her hair elegantly coiled into a chignon, and a diamond necklace around her neck, radiating an air of regal elegance. Beside her stood a man in a tailored suit. Ethan. He had gained a little weight since 3 years ago, but still carried himself with the air of a successful businessman. His hand gently brushed Susan's waist as they chatted and laughed, looking every bit the loving couple. My heart ached as if it were being squeezed. At this moment, the host stepped onto the stage and began his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 3-year anniversary celebration of Starry Investment. First, let us welcome Mr. Eason, chairman of Starry Investment, to deliver his address. Applause erupted. Eason walked onto the stage and took the microphone. Thank you all for coming. Over the past 3 years, Starry Investment has grown from nothing to its current scale, and this would not have been possible without your support. He paused, his gaze shifting to Susan. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible without the companionship of this lovely lady by my side. He reached out to Susan. Susan, come up. Susan hesitated slightly but stepped onto the stage. 3 years ago, I faced a major setback in my life. It was Susan who stood by me through the toughest times. Eason held Susan's hand. Today, I want to share some wonderful news with everyone. My heart began to race wildly. Next month, Susan and I are getting married. The audience erupted in enthusiastic applause and well wishes. Susan forced a smile, but I could see it was strained. Eason pulled a small box from his pocket and knelt down on one knee. Susan, will you marry me? The entire banquet hall fell silent as all eyes turned to the proposal on stage. Susan gazed at the diamond ring, a flicker of pain crossing her eyes. But in the end, she nodded. I will. Applause erupted once more, even more fervent than before. I stood in the corner, my heart as cold as ashes. So that's how it was. She had chosen Eason all along. I turned to leave, but was stopped. Sir, please show your invitation. 2 security guards stood before me. I reached into my pocket only to realize I didn't have one. Without an invitation, you must leave. The security guard's tone brooked no argument. Just then, Eason on stage noticed the commotion. When he recognized my face, he froze. Bill? His voice boomed through the microphone, filling the entire banquet hall. Everyone turned to look at me. Including Susan. The moment she saw me, her face instantly drained of color, and the bouquet slipped from her hands, falling to the floor. Whispered murmurs began to ripple through the ballroom. Who is Bill? No idea, but he seems to know the bride. Judging by her expression, they're definitely not just friends. Eason's expression darkened, but he quickly regained his composure. I didn't expect to see you here. He stepped down from the stage and approached me. Bill, welcome to my engagement party. He deliberately emphasized the words, my engagement party. I'm just passing through, I said calmly. Congratulations to both of you. Thanks. Eason sneered, but I recall you should still be behind bars. My sentence is served. Oh, right. Murder. 3 years. Eason's voice was loud, clearly meant for the ears of those around them. The murmurs in the banquet hall grew louder. A murderer? Good heavens, how did someone like this get in? Call the police. I felt the fearful and disgusted stares around me, but I didn't back down. Eason, since you're so concerned about my case, why don't we find somewhere to talk? A flicker of panic crossed Eason's eyes, but he quickly masked it. Nothing to talk about. Security, escort him out. 2 security guards stepped forward again, ready to take me away. Wait, Susan said, stepping down from the stage. I want to have a word with him. Eason frowned. Susan, there's no need. Just a few minutes. Susan looked at me, her eyes filled with complex emotions. Even if it's just to help me give up completely. Eason thought for a moment and nodded. All right, 5 minutes. Susan walked up to me and whispered, "Follow me." I followed her out of the banquet hall to a quiet corner at the end of the corridor. Why did you come here? Susan stood with her back to me, her voice soft. I wanted to see how you're doing. Now you see. She turned around. I'm getting married to a man who loves me. Loves you? I sneered. Susan, do you really think Eason loves you, or does he just want to possess you? Does it matter? A flicker of self-mockery passed through Susan's eyes. At least he didn't kill my father. Me neither. What? Susan froze. I said, I didn't kill your father either. I stared into her eyes. There's more to that car accident 3 years ago. Susan's face paled. What the hell are you talking about? Susan, who was on the phone that night? Why did you suddenly have to leave? I closed in on her. And why was midazolam in my blood? She took a step back, fear filling her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. You know. I grabbed her wrist. Susan, tell me the truth. If I really did kill your father, I'll spend the rest of my life atoning for it. But if I didn't? I didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Susan pulled her hand away, and tears began to fall. Bill, stop fooling yourself. The evidence is clear, you're the killer. What about Daisy? I blurted out. Is she really my daughter? Susan's body shook violently. She what? Susan clenched her teeth, tears streaming down her face like a burst dam. She's not your child. The word struck me like a thunderbolt. I froze. What? She's not your child. She's Eason's daughter. Susan wept with heart-wrenching anguish. Are you satisfied now? The world spun around me, collapsing into chaos. Daisy wasn't my daughter? That child who looked so much like me, wasn't she my flesh and blood? Impossible, I shook my head. She looked so much like me. That was just a coincidence. Susan cut me off. Stop deluding yourself, she was never your child. A wave of dizziness hit me, and I leaned against the wall to steady myself. If Daisy wasn't my daughter, what had all my persistence over these past 3 years been for? What had all my hopes after getting out of prison been for? Why did you lie to me? My voice was hoarse. Why didn't you just tell me yesterday? Susan wiped away her tears and regained her composure. Because I didn't want to drag you into this mess. Bill, it's over between us. You should start a new life and forget everything that happened. Forget? I gave a bitter laugh. Susan, I spent 3 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. And now you want me to forget? What crime you didn't commit? A flicker of panic crossed Susan's eyes. The evidence is right there. You are the murderer. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Eason approached, his expression dark. Finished chatting? Susan hurried over to his side. We're done. Eason wrapped his arm around Susan's waist and looked at me. Bill, now that you're out, I suggest you keep a low profile. Let bygones be bygones. Don't go looking for trouble. What's the problem? I sneered. Eason, you seem really worried I'll overturn the verdict, huh? Eason's eyes turned dangerous. Worried about what? You're a murderer, what verdict do you think you're overturning? Murderer? I closed in on him. Eason, are you sure I caused that car accident? Of course, the evidence is irrefutable. Is that so? I pulled out my phone and pulled up the photo Bob had sent me. Then can you explain this? The photo was a surveillance screenshot from the accident scene, clearly showing the inconsistencies at the location. Eason glanced at it, his expression shifting slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. What does this mean? Accidents are accidents. Accidents? I sneered. Was midazolam an accident too? At the mention of the word, Susan's face drained of color. A flash of murderous intent flickered in Eason's eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know? I tucked my phone away. It doesn't matter. I'll have the police reopen the case. I'm confident the truth will come out soon enough. You have no evidence. Eason finally snapped. Bill, stop deluding yourself. I have no evidence? I laughed. Eason, why are you so worked up? If you're truly innocent, you should support me in reopening the investigation. Eason realized he'd overreacted and forced himself to calm down. I just don't think it's necessary to waste the police's time. Wasting time? I stared at him coldly. Clearing the name of an innocent person, you call that wasting time? Susan suddenly spoke up, enough. Stop arguing. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain. Bill, I beg you, don't pursue this any further. Let bygones be bygones. The past? I shook my head. Susan, some things can't be put behind you. There's only one truth, and I'm going to find it. With that, I turned and walked away. Bill. Susan called after me. I didn't look back. Stepping outside the hotel, the night wind blew against my face, and I felt more awake than ever before. Daisy may not be my daughter, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that I smell a conspiracy. Both Eason and Susan reacted abnormally, especially when I mentioned midazolam. Their expressions gave them away. I pulled out my phone and dialed Bob's number. Bob, first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to the police station. I'm requesting a reinvestigation of that car accident from 3 years ago. Bill, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back. I've made up my mind. I looked up at the sky filled with daisies. I'm going to get justice for myself. After hanging up the phone, I walked slowly through the night. The hotel behind me was still brightly lit, but that world no longer belonged to me. My world lies on the path to finding the truth. Early the next morning, Bob and I arrived at the Municipal Public Security Bureau. We were met by Dave from the Criminal Investigation Division, a sharp-looking man in his 40s. Bill? Dave frowned as he reviewed my file. The person involved in Barry's car accident 3 years ago? What brings you here? I'm requesting a reinvestigation of this case. I'll get straight to the point. Dave paused for a moment, then shook his head. This case is closed. The evidence is conclusive, and you've served your sentence. There's no need for a reinvestigation. It's necessary. I placed the materials Bob had compiled in front of him. Dave, please take a look at these. Dave reluctantly opened the documents, but his expression turned serious when he saw the photos and analysis reports. Where did you get this information? My friend investigated it. I pointed at Bob, he's a private investigator. Dave studied it for over 10 minutes before looking up. These analyses have some merit, but they're not enough to overturn the original verdict. What about midazolam? I asked. The blood test report at the time showed high levels of sedatives in my system. Why wasn't this discrepancy investigated further? Dave paused. That drug is commonly used in hospitals. It might have been administered during your treatment there. No. Bob spoke up. I checked the hospital's medication records. Bill wasn't administered any sedatives at the time. Plus, midazolam has a very short half-life. If it had been administered at the hospital, it wouldn't have maintained such a high concentration in his blood. Dave looked at Bob, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Which detective agency are you with? Freelance. Bob pulled out his credentials. I have a legitimate private investigator license. Dave took the credentials, glanced at them, then handed them back to Bob. All right, let's assume your analysis is correct. Midazolam was deliberately administered. But who administered it? What evidence do we have? That's precisely what we lack most. No direct evidence yet, but we have a reasonable suspect. I took a deep breath. Eason. Eason? Dave frowned. The boss of Starry Investment? What do you suspect him of? I recounted Eason's relationship with Susan and how he'd been funding her for the past 3 years. After listening, Dave fell deep in thought. He certainly has a motive, but all this is speculation. The court needs evidence. Dave, I'm not demanding anyone be arrested immediately. I just want the case reinvestigated. I'm telling you sincerely, if the investigation proves I'm truly guilty, I won't complain. But if I'd been framed... Dave looked at me, a flicker of sympathy in his eyes. All right, I can arrange for someone to reinvestigate the case. But you must understand, even if new doubts emerge, it doesn't necessarily overturn the original verdict. I understand. I nodded. I just want the truth. Dave closed the file. Give me a week. Stepping out of the police station, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Finally, someone was willing to hear my side of the story. Bill, what do we do next? Bob asked. Wait, I said. And I want to see Daisy one more time. Though Susan insists Daisy isn't my daughter, I can't shake the feeling there's more to it than meets the eye. That child bears such a striking resemblance to me, it's far too much to dismiss as mere coincidence. I need to take her for a DNA test in secret. In the afternoon, I arrived at the entrance of Daisy's kindergarten. This was a very upscale private kindergarten with hefty tuition fees. I hid in the coffee shop across the street, watching the kindergarten gate through the window. At 4:30, dismissal time arrived. The children were picked up by their parents one after another. I saw Daisy, bouncing along with a little pink backpack on her back. A middle-aged woman, probably her nanny, was there to pick her up. I followed them, keeping a safe distance. Instead of heading straight home, they went to the nearby playground. Daisy was having a blast on the slide, her laughter ringing out like a bell. The nanny sat on a nearby chair scrolling through her phone, barely paying attention to her surroundings. I took the chance to walk over. Daisy, I called softly. Daisy turned to see me, her eyes lighting up instantly. Uncle. It's you. She ran over happily. What are you doing here? I was passing by and saw you playing. I crouched down to meet her eye level. Having fun? So much fun. Daisy nodded vigorously, then asked curiously, Uncle, do I really look a lot like you? What do you think? Daisy tilted her little head, studying my face intently. Like. Especially the eyes, and here. She pointed to the small mole at the corner of my eye. Daisy, can you tell Uncle if your mom ever talked about your dad? Daisy's expression turned slightly confused. Mom says my dad works far, far away, and can't come back to see me. What about Ethan? Uncle's great, he bought me so many toys. Mom says he'll be my new dad from now on. Daisy's innocent words pierced my heart like needles. At that moment, the nanny noticed our conversation. She approached warily. Who are you? Why are you talking to Daisy? I'm a friend of her mother's, I replied, standing up. What kind of friend? I've never seen you before, the nanny said, growing even more suspicious. Daisy, come here. Don't talk to strangers. Daisy shot me a reluctant glance before obediently walking over to the nanny. Uncle, will you come see me again next time? I will, I smiled at her. Uncle promises. The nanny hurriedly pulled Daisy away. I watched them disappear into the distance, my heart heavy with mixed emotions. Whether or not Daisy is my daughter, I simply cannot remain indifferent to this child. She resembles me so much as a child, not just in appearance, but in temperament too. I must uncover the truth. That evening, back at the rental apartment, I received a call from Susan. Bill, I heard you went to the kindergarten to find Daisy? Her voice was filled with anger. I just wanted to see her. I warned you not to go near my daughter. Your daughter? I sneered. Susan, if Daisy really isn't my daughter, why are you so nervous? There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Because I don't want her to be affected by your past. My past? My voice turned cold. Susan, maybe that past itself is fake. What do you mean? Just wait. The truth will come out soon enough. I hung up the phone. Almost immediately, it rang again, this time it was Ethan. Bill, we need to talk. Sure. When and where? Tonight at 9, the usual spot at the coffee shop. Remember, come alone. The old place cafe was where Susan and I used to hang out, it's full of memories. Ethan must have picked this spot for a reason. Alright, I'll be there on time. After hanging up, I checked the time, 2 hours to go. I had a feeling tonight's meeting would be a turning point. Either everything will come to light, or... I touched the voice recorder in my pocket. Either way, I had to be prepared. At exactly 9 o'clock, I arrived punctually at the old place cafe. Nestled in a quiet alley, this cafe boasted an artsy decor and was where Susan and I used to meet. 3 years later, little had changed here, even the potted philodendron in the corner remained. Ethan was already waiting, seated by the window with a cup of Blue Mountain coffee before him. Spotting me enter, he beckoned. Bill, over here. I walked over and sat down. The waiter came over to ask what I wanted, but I waved him off. No thanks, I won't be staying long. Eason smiled. Don't be so tense, we're just chatting. Chatting about what? I stared straight at him. Chatting about how you framed me? Eason's smile froze for a moment before quickly returning. Bill, you're still as direct as ever. But I like people who are straightforward. He took a sip of coffee. I came here today to make a deal with you. What kind of deal? It's simple. Eason set down his coffee cup. You dropped the investigation into that case from 3 years ago, and I'll give you enough money to start a new life. I scoffed coldly. How much? 5 million. The figure caught me off guard. 5 million, for someone just out of prison, that's an absolute fortune. 5 million to buy my silence? I shook my head. Eason, you're underestimating me. What about the 10 million? A flicker of desperation crossed Eason's eyes. Bill, a man should know when he's ahead. 10 million is more than enough to live like a king. The more he tried to bribe me, the more it showed he was scared. What if I refuse? Eason's expression darkened. Then you're courting death. Threatening me? Not a threat, but a warning. Eason leaned forward, his voice growing low. Bill, you really think you, a murderer fresh out of prison, can take me on? Why don't you try and find out? Eason stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly smiled. All right, since you insist, I'll tell you the truth. He leaned back in his chair. That car accident 3 years ago, it really wasn't your fault. My heart began to pound violently, but I forced myself to stay calm. Go on. Barry's death was an accident. Eason's tone was flat, as if recounting someone else's story. That night, I asked Susan out to see her one last time, hoping to win her back. But she refused and said she was going to marry you. I clenched my fists. Then what? Then her father Barry appeared. Eason continued, he urged Susan to be with me, saying I had a brighter future. Susan got angry and tried to leave. Barry went to pull her back, and I tried to help, but I accidentally pushed him. An accident? My voice dripped with sarcasm. It really was an accident, Eason shook his head. When he fell, his head hit a rock by the roadside. I checked his pulse, he wasn't breathing anymore. A wave of nausea washed over me. And then you just pinned the blame on me? It's not about shifting blame, it's to protect Susan. Eason's voice trembled slightly. If this gets exposed, Susan will be implicated too. She'll be considered an accomplice. So you decided to make me take the fall? Bill, you have to understand, the situation back then was complicated. Eason tried to defend himself, and you just happened to be nearby, and you'd been drinking. I wasn't drinking. I cut him off. You guys drugged me. Eason paused. Yes, midazolam. Susan slipped some into your drink. My heart ached as if someone had clenched it in their fist. Susan, she really was part of the plan to frame me. Why? My voice was hoarse. Why would she do that? Because she loves me. A smug look flashed in Eason's eyes. Bill, did you really think Susan ever loved you? From start to finish, she only ever loved me. Being with you was just to provoke me. Those words stabbed into my heart like a dagger. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. Eason sneered, you'll never understand a woman's mind. Susan chose you precisely because she knew I cared about her. The moment I truly compromised and was willing to do anything for her, she came right back to me. I felt dizzy. If what Eason said is true, then what about the pain I've endured these past 3 years? What about my love for Susan? What about Daisy? I asked the most crucial question. Whose daughter is she, really? Eason's expression grew complicated. It's complicated. She's your daughter. Eason gritted out. Susan was already pregnant then, but she didn't want the baby. I was the one who convinced her to have it. I froze. What did you say? She's my daughter? Yes. Eason's voice was low. But Susan didn't want you to know. She said the bloodline of her father's killer has no place in this world. My eyes stung. Daisy really was my daughter. That sweet little girl, she truly was my flesh and blood. Then why did Susan say she wasn't yesterday? Because she's afraid you'll take Daisy away. Ethan sighed. Bill, Susan hates you now. In her mind, you're the one who killed her father. Even if Daisy is your daughter, she won't let you two meet. I took a deep breath. Ethan, you know what I want to do most right now? What? Kill you. My voice was as cold as steel. You ruined my life, destroyed my family, and took away the most precious 5 years of my daughter's life. Ethan's expression darkened. Bill, calm down. What's done is done. The key now is how we resolve this. Resolve? I stood up. Simple. You turn yourself in. Admit you killed Barry. Admit you framed me. Impossible. Ethan stood up too. Bill, do you really think anyone would believe you? You're a murderer fresh out of prison, and I'm a successful entrepreneur. Whose word do you think carries more weight? I have the recording. I pulled out the voice recorder and waved it in front of him. Ethan's face instantly drained of color. You. I recorded the entire conversation just now, I sneered. Ethan, do you still think no one will believe me? Ethan froze for a few seconds, then suddenly lunged at me, trying to snatch the voice recorder. I was prepared for this, stepping back while clutching the recorder tightly. You think snatching the recorder will help? I sneered. I have backups. Ethan froze, despair flashing in his eyes. Bill, we can talk. There's nothing to discuss. I tucked the recorder away. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm handing this over to the police. With that, I turned and walked away. Bill. Ethan called after me. Have you thought about the consequences? If this blows up, Susan will get dragged into it too. I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn back. That was her choice. Stepping out of the cafe, the night breeze swept across my face, bringing an unprecedented sense of relief. The truth was finally clear. I wasn't a murderer, I was the victim. More importantly, Daisy was my daughter. My own flesh and blood. I pulled out my phone and dialed Bob. Bob, we've got a major breakthrough. First thing tomorrow morning, we're heading to the police station. What happened? Ethan confessed. I've got his recorded confession. Bob shouted excitedly on the other end. That's fantastic. Bill, you're finally going to get your revenge. After hanging up, I looked up at the star-filled sky. Daisy, Dad will be able to visit you openly very soon. Early the next morning, I brought the recorded evidence to the police station. After listening to the recording, Dave's expression turned very serious. This recording is highly valuable, but we need further investigation to verify its authenticity. He looked up at me. Bill, if this recording is genuine, then you were indeed framed. But you must understand that even so, the process of overturning the conviction is extremely complicated. I understand. I nodded. Dave, I just want my name cleared. All right, I'll get someone to investigate immediately. Dave stood up. We'll start with technical analysis to verify the authenticity of the recording. Then we'll summon Ethan and Susan for detailed questioning. Stepping out of the police station, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The wheels of justice had begun to turn, all that remained was to wait. That afternoon, Susan called. Bill, have you lost your mind? Her voice was thick with fear and fury. You actually called the police? It seems Ethan has already told her everything. Susan, at this point, there's no turning back, I said calmly. You should have told me the truth earlier. The truth? Susan gave a bitter laugh. The truth is that you killed my father. No, the truth is Ethan killed your father, and then you two teamed up to frame me. My voice turned cold. Susan, you know this in your heart. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Even if you didn't kill him directly, you're still responsible. Susan's voice trembled slightly. If you hadn't shown up, my father wouldn't have died. What kind of logic is that? I was utterly baffled. Susan, Ethan killed your father. What does that have to do with me? It matters. Susan suddenly became agitated. If you hadn't come into my life, if you hadn't made me fall in love with you, my father wouldn't have opposed our relationship, wouldn't have gone looking for Ethan, and certainly wouldn't have died. I was stunned. So in Susan's mind, I was the root of all the tragedy. Susan, you're wrong to think that. I don't want to hear your explanations. Susan cut me off. Bill, this is my final warning, withdraw the report, or you'll face the consequences. What consequences? You'll lose everything, including Daisy. With that, she hung up. I stared at the phone, my emotions in turmoil. Susan's threat had me deeply worried. What would she do to Daisy? I immediately called Bob. Bob, can you keep an eye on Daisy? I'm worried Susan might take her out of town. No problem, I'll arrange someone right away. After hanging up, I decided to go to Daisy's kindergarten myself. Arriving at the kindergarten gate, I noticed it wasn't the nanny picking up Daisy today, but Susan herself. She looked rushed, glancing at her watch repeatedly. Daisy skipped out carrying her backpack and seemed puzzled when she saw Susan. Mommy, why are you picking me up today? Mom has to run an errand, and you need to come with her. Susan took Daisy's hand. We're leaving now. Where are we going? Daisy asked reluctantly. I still want to play with my friends. Go somewhere far away. Susan didn't explain much, just pulled Daisy toward the car parked by the roadside. I realized something was wrong. Susan was taking Daisy away, probably to evade the police investigation. I couldn't let them leave like that. I hurried over. Susan. Hearing my voice, Susan whipped her head around. The moment she saw me, her face went deathly pale. What are you doing here? I came to see my daughter. I walked up to them, crouched down, and said to Daisy, Daisy, want to play with Uncle for a bit? Daisy's eyes lit up instantly. I do. Uncle, you came to see me again. She tried to break free from Susan's grip and run toward me. But Susan pulled her back. Daisy, we have to go. There's no time to play. Mommy, just for a little while, Daisy pleaded. No way. Susan's tone was stern. Leave now. Daisy was startled, tears welling up in her eyes. I couldn't bear to watch. Susan, where are you taking her? None of your business. Susan scooped Daisy up and hurried toward the car. I stepped in front of the car. I won't let you take her away. You have no right to stop me. Susan snapped. She's my daughter. She's my daughter too. My voice was loud enough to draw a crowd of onlookers. Daisy, held in Susan's arms, looked at us with confusion. Uncle, you're saying I'm your daughter? I looked into her innocent eyes, and my heart clenched. Yes, Daisy. I'm your dad. Daisy's eyes widened, then she turned to Susan. Mommy, is it true? Pain flashed in Susan's eyes, but she still shook her head. No, Daisy. Uncle is lying to you. I'm not lying to her. I pulled out my phone. Susan, how about we go to the hospital right now for a DNA test? Susan's face turned even paler. No need. She carried Daisy into the car. Driver, start the engine. I tried to stop her, but the driver had already revved the engine. As the car began to pull away, I made an impulsive decision. I rushed to the front of the vehicle and grabbed the door handle. Susan, you can't take her. You're crazy. Susan screamed from inside the car, let go. The driver stepped on the gas, and the car began to move. I was dragged along for a few steps before finally letting go. The car quickly vanished at the end of the street. I stood rooted to the spot, feeling more helpless than ever before. Bystanders pointed and whispered, some pulling out their phones to record the scene. Not wanting to become the subject of gossip, I quickly left the area. Back at my rental apartment, I immediately called Bob. Bob, Susan took Daisy and ran off. Can you find out where they went? I'll try. Bob's voice was urgent too. Bill, in this situation, you should call the police. Call the police? Yes, report it as child abduction. Even though Daisy is Susan's daughter, if DNA proves she's also your daughter, Susan has no right to take the child away unilaterally. I think Bob makes a good point. Then I'll head to the police station right now. Hold on, Bill. I suggest you go to the hospital first to get your blood sample collected. That way, once we find Daisy, we can run the DNA test immediately. Good idea. I immediately headed out, first going to the hospital for a blood draw, then straight to the police station. After hearing my situation, Dave frowned. Bill, this case is a bit complicated. Legally speaking, if there's a dispute over the child's parentage, DNA testing is indeed required for confirmation. But until then, we can't forcibly prevent the biological mother from taking the child. Then what should I do? I'm going crazy with worry. Dave said, once we uncover the truth behind that car accident 3 years ago, once the DNA test results come back. At that point, if it proves you are indeed the child's father and that you were wrongfully accused, we'll help you get your child back. Leaving the police station, I felt utterly defeated. The legal process is too complicated, and Susan has already taken Daisy off to who knows where. By the time all the procedures are completed, Daisy might be all grown up. I can't just sit around waiting for disaster to strike. I have to find them myself. Back at the rental apartment, I began formulating a plan. First, I need to track down places Susan might have gone. Her relatives and friends, cities she's visited before, places she might be hiding. Second, I need money. Finding someone costs money, and I'm currently penniless. I thought of the money Eason mentioned earlier. Although I had refused his bribe before, things were different now. I needed his money to get my daughter back. I dialed Eason's number. Bill? His voice sounded weary. What do you want now? I need money, I got straight to the point. 10 million, cash. Eason froze. You agreed not to pursue it? I didn't agree to anything. My tone was icy. I just need money to find my daughter. Susan ran off with Daisy, and I'm going to get her back. This? Eason hesitated. Bill, if I give you money, can you promise not to pursue the matter from 3 years ago anymore? I've already reported it to the police. This isn't something I can decide on my own. I told him the truth. But I can promise that once I get the money, I'll focus solely on finding my daughter and won't actively cooperate with the police investigation anymore. Eason was silent for a long time. Alright, tomorrow at 10 in the morning, the usual spot at the coffee shop. I'll bring the cash. 10 million in cash? I was taken aback. Can you really get that much cash? I have my ways. Eason hung up after saying that. Putting down my phone, I began to think about tomorrow's meeting. Would Eason honestly hand over the money? Or was he up to something else? Either way, I had to give it a shot. For Daisy's sake, I was willing to take the risk. Late into the night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Daisy's smiling face kept flashing through my mind, along with her confused expression as she asked, Uncle, you said I'm your daughter? She was still so young, completely unaware of what was happening. In her world, Mom suddenly wants to take her to a strange place, and an uncle claiming to be her father has appeared in her life. She must be confused and scared. I must find her as soon as possible, tell her the truth, and give her a complete family. But first, I need to get the money and avoid any traps Eason might have set. Tomorrow's meeting will determine my fate and Daisy's future. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to sleep. Tomorrow is the crucial day. The next morning, I arrived at the Old Place Cafe half an hour early. I chose a seat where I could see all the entrances and exits, ordered a cup of coffee, and waited silently. At 9:50, Eason appeared. He was dragging a black suitcase that looked very heavy. My heart began to race. 10 million in cash, was it really in that box? Eason walked over to my desk, sat down, and placed the box at his feet. The money's here, he said, his face grim, dark circles under his eyes, looking like he hadn't slept all night. Where is it? He kicked the box at his feet. It's all in here. 10 million, cash. I bent down to inspect the box, it was indeed heavy. How do I know it's really money? Eason opened the box just a crack, revealing thick stacks of bills inside. It was money, all right, and a substantial amount at that. Can we talk terms now? Eason slammed the box shut. What terms? Once you take the money, you vanish completely. Eason's eyes were dangerous. Leave this city and never come back. I sneered coldly, why should I? With this 10 million. Eason leaned forward. Bill, you're just out of prison, when will you ever earn 10 million? This money will last you the rest of your life. What about Susan? I asked. Does she know you're giving me money here? Eason's expression turned complicated. She doesn't know. And, she won't be coming back. What do you mean? Susan took the kids and left the country. Eason sighed. Last night's flight. To Singapore. My heart raced. Left the country? Yes. She said she doesn't want to see you anymore, and she doesn't want the child dragged into this mess. Ethan looked at me. Bill, you've lost. Completely lost. I felt dizzy. If Susan really took Daisy out of the country, how would I find them? I didn't believe it. I shook my head. Show me the proof. Ethan pulled his phone from his pocket and flicked through to show me a photo. In it, Susan stood holding Daisy at the airport, with the departure hall signage in the background. The timestamp read 11 p.m. last night. My heart sank. She really had left the country. Now you believe me? Ethan tucked away his phone. Bill, give it up. You'll never chase her all the way to Singapore. I fell silent for a long time. If Susan really had left the country, that money would be crucial for me. I needed it to get a passport, buy a plane ticket, and find someone in Singapore. I want the money, I said. Ethan let out a sigh of relief. Wise choice. I bent down to grab the box, but Ethan held my hand. Hold on, you haven't agreed to my terms yet. What terms? Sign an agreement. Ethan pulled a document from his briefcase. Admit you took my $10 million in hush money and promise not to pursue any legal action. I glanced at the agreement, basically buying my silence with cash. What if I refuse to sign? Then there's no money. Ethan's stance was firm. I found myself in a dilemma. Signing this agreement would mean admitting I was extorting him and giving up my right to clear my name. But if I didn't sign, I wouldn't have the money to find Daisy. I recalled Daisy's eyes, identical to mine, and made up my mind. I'll sign. Ethan smiled with satisfaction. Very good. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the agreement. Ethan checked everything over, confirmed it was correct, then pushed the box toward me. The money's yours. I lifted the box. It was heavy, at least 20 kilograms. Ethan, I have one last question. What is it? 3 years ago, did you really kill Barry by accident? Ethan's expression shifted. Of course it was an accident. I stared into his eyes, sensing he was lying. But now wasn't the time to dwell on it. I stood up, dragging my suitcase. Then we part ways here. Bill. Ethan called after me. Remember your promise. I didn't look back as I walked straight out of the coffee shop. Carrying $10 million in cash down the street, I felt like everyone was staring at me. I needed to find a safe place to deposit the money as soon as possible. Back at the rental apartment, I opened the box and counted it all. It was indeed $10 million, all genuine bills. I'd never seen so much money in my life. But to me, this money had only one purpose, to find my daughter. I pulled out my phone and started searching for flights to Singapore. The earliest departure was tomorrow afternoon, but I needed to get my passport first. I remember when I was released from prison, the guard told me my passport had expired and needed to be reissued. The standard procedure takes 10 business days, but I couldn't wait that long. I needed to pull some strings and go through special channels. 10 million would be enough to solve a lot of problems for me. I dialed Bob's number. Bob, do you have connections at the Immigration Bureau? I do, but... Bob's voice sounded strange. Bill, where are you? At home. What's wrong? Run. Bob said urgently. The police are after you. I froze. What do the cops want with me? Ethan called the police, accusing you of extorting 10 million from him. My head buzzed. That bastard, using the agreement as evidence to sue me for extortion. Bill, where are you now? I'll come pick you up. I glanced at the cash box on the table and instantly understood Ethan's scheme. He wasn't genuinely offering me money, he was setting a trap to frame me. Signing that agreement would provide evidence of extortion. Taking this money would make me a criminal. He's trying to get me locked up again, and this time it's a solid case. Bob, I gotta go. Call me if anything comes up. I started packing immediately. This situation is dangerous, I have to get out of here now. But what about all this cash? Carrying it all was too conspicuous, but leaving it behind felt like a waste. After some thought, I decided to hide part of it and take the rest with me. I stashed most of the money in various corners of the rental apartment, carrying only $500,000 in cash. Then I changed into a different outfit, pulled on a hat, and quickly left the rental apartment. As soon as I reached the ground floor, I saw 2 police cars parked at the entrance. Several officers were rushing upstairs. I pulled my hat brim low and pretended to be a passerby as I walked past them. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. After walking several hundred meters and confirming no one was following me, I finally dared to hail a taxi and leave. In the taxi, I pondered my next move. Eason's move was truly vicious, turning me from victim into criminal. But I couldn't give up now. I would find Susan and Daisy, even if it meant searching to the ends of the earth. I paid cash for a room at a small hotel, then contacted a friend who specializes in making fake documents. I met him in prison. After getting out, he switched to this line of work. Bill? Jerry sounded surprised when he got my call. What made you think to reach out? Jerry, I need a clean ID card and passport. What's going on? Don't ask. How much? ID card, 100,000. Passport, 200,000. Both genuine, pass any inspection. Alright. When can I get them? Tomorrow night. Where? Jerry gave me an address, an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. After hanging up, I began researching where Susan might have gone in Singapore. Did she have relatives there? Friends? I recalled the people and places she'd mentioned during our time together. Suddenly, I remembered someone. Her cousin Anna had moved to Singapore 3 years ago. Susan had once mentioned that if she had the chance, she'd like to live in Singapore too. Perhaps she was going to find Anna. I searched for Anna online and quickly found her social media accounts. The latest update was posted yesterday, showing her holding a little girl. Though only her profile is visible, I'm certain that's Daisy. Found it. They really are in Singapore. I immediately began formulating a rescue plan. First, I need to get the fake documents by tomorrow night. Then I'll buy the earliest flight to Singapore. Once I'm there, I'll find a way to track down Anna's address, and then what? Just show up at her door to demand her? Susan definitely won't cooperate. Moreover, I'm currently a wanted criminal. If my identity is exposed, I'll be deported back to my country. I need a more meticulous plan. At night, lying on the hotel bed, my mind kept running through every possible scenario. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. I instantly became alert. Who is it? Waitress, here's your towel. It was a woman's voice, but something felt off. Why would someone deliver a towel at this hour? I didn't open the door. Instead, I crept to the window and peered down. Several cars were parked below, with people inside. Police. They found me. I immediately began gathering my things and then opened the window. This was the 3rd floor. Jumping straight down would hurt, but I had no other choice. I slung my backpack over my shoulders, took a deep breath, and jumped. My knees throbbed with pain as I hit the ground, but I couldn't afford to dwell on it. Gritting my teeth against the agony, I started running. The shouts and footsteps of the police echoed behind me. I ran frantically, darting through alleys, scaling walls, and using my familiarity with the city to shake off my pursuers. Finally, I hid in an abandoned construction site, gasping for breath. It seemed the police were moving faster than I had anticipated. That bastard Eason must have given them plenty of leads. The situation is even more dangerous now. I can't proceed with the original plan. I have to get out of this city immediately. I pulled out my phone and called Jerry. Jerry, there's been a change of plans. I need the documents now. Can you move things up? This. Jerry hesitated. Bill, is something wrong? Don't ask questions. Can you handle it? It's possible, but the price will double. Fine, no problem. When? Right now, but you'll have to come pick it up here. Send me the address. The address Jerry sent was in a more remote area, on the other side of town. I had no choice but to venture there. Taking a taxi was too risky, so I decided to walk. It took me over 3 hours to reach the place Jerry mentioned. It was an old residential building that looked abandoned for quite some time. I found the room using the door number Jerry gave me. I knocked, and Jerry opened the door. Bill, what happened to you? He asked, looking at my disheveled state with concern. Don't ask. Got the documents ready? Ready. Jerry motioned me inside. ID card, passport, and the matching bank card. I inspected the documents. They were top-notch, with almost no flaws detectable. 60,000. Jerry held out his hand. I counted out 60,000 in cash for him. Jerry, about this deal. I don't know anything. Jerry was sharp. We've never met. After bidding Jerry farewell, I rushed to the airport with my new identity. Though booking under the new identity cost a bit more, I successfully secured a flight departing at midnight. While waiting in the departure lounge, I saw my own wanted notice broadcast on the news. Bill, a suspect in an extortion case, remains at large. Police are conducting an all-out manhunt. The photo on TV was still from 3 years ago, looking very different from who I am now. But I still pulled my hat down a little lower. At 3 in the morning, the plane took off. Watching the city lights fade away outside the window, my feelings were mixed. I might never come back. But for Daisy, it was all worth it. The plane touched down at Singapore's Changi Airport at 9 a.m. local time. I cleared customs without any issues. The fake documents worked perfectly. But the real challenge was yet to come. I must find my daughter in this unfamiliar country and figure out how to bring her home. After leaving the airport, I took a taxi into the city. First, I need to locate Anna's address. According to her social media posts, she lives in an upscale residential area called Emerald Hill. But I still need to investigate further to pinpoint the exact building and apartment. I booked a hotel room nearby and began formulating a detailed plan of action. Time was running out. I had to find Daisy before Susan realized anything was amiss. After several days of stakeout observation, I finally pinpointed Anna's exact address, Emerald Manor, Building B, 18th floor. Every afternoon around 4 o'clock, Anna takes Daisy to play in the garden downstairs. Daisy was clearly having a wonderful time here, sliding down the slide and swinging on the swings with the other children, her laughter ringing out brightly. But I also noticed that Susan was rarely around. Only Anna was looking after Daisy. Perhaps Susan had other things to attend to, or she didn't want to risk showing up. Today was my chance. After seeing Anna take Daisy to the garden, I pretended to be a passing tourist and slowly approached. Daisy was intently building sandcastles in the sandbox. I walked over and crouched beside her. Daisy, I called softly. Daisy looked up and her eyes lit up the moment she saw me. Uncle, she exclaimed happily, tossing aside her toy. What are you doing here? Uncle came to see you, I said, stroking her little face. Want to go somewhere with Uncle? Where? Daisy asked, tilting her head. Let's go to a really fun place with lots of toys and yummy treats. Daisy was tempted, but hesitated. What about Mom? What about Auntie? I glanced over at Anna, who was chatting with other parents nearby and hadn't noticed what was happening over here. They'll be looking for us soon. I made up a lie. Daisy, trust Uncle, okay? Daisy thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, but we should tell Auntie. No need. We'll be back in a flash. I took her little hand. Come on. Daisy followed me toward the garden exit. Just as we were about to step out, Anna's voice called from behind. Daisy. Where are you going? Daisy glanced back and called to Anna, Auntie, I'm going to play with Uncle for a bit. Anna's expression changed instantly when she saw me. She rushed over and grabbed Daisy. Who are you? Why are you taking Daisy? I'm her father, I said calmly. Anna froze for a moment, then recognized me. You're Bill? Susan's ex-boyfriend? Yes. How did you find this place? Anna's tone was wary. What do you want? I want to take my daughter back. She's not your daughter. Anna scooped Daisy into her arms. Daisy, this man is lying to you. Let's go. Daisy sat in Anna's arms, looking at us with confusion. Auntie, is Uncle really my dad? Anna didn't know how to answer. I seized the moment and said, Daisy, look at Uncle's eyes. Aren't they just like yours? Daisy looked closely into my eyes and nodded. Exactly the same. And here, I pointed to the small mole at the corner of my eye. You have this little spot too. Daisy touched the corner of her own eye, then looked back at mine. It really is identical. Anna's expression grew complicated. Even if she looks like him, it doesn't prove anything. Her tone softened slightly. Besides, Susan said Daisy's father is. Ethan? I interrupted her. Anna, do you think Daisy looks like Ethan? Anna fell silent. Clearly, she knew Daisy and Ethan bore no resemblance whatsoever. I can arrange a DNA test, I said. If it proves Daisy isn't my daughter, I'll disappear immediately and never bother you again. Anna hesitated for a long time. Well, you'll have to discuss it with Susan. I can't make that decision. Where is Susan? She's out running an errand. She won't be back until tonight. I glanced at my watch. It was 5 in the afternoon. Then I'll wait for her. Anna had no choice but to take me and Daisy back to the apartment. Daisy was very affectionate toward me, holding my hand the whole way and chattering nonstop. Uncle, where do you live? Uncle lives very far away. Then why did you come to see me? I looked into her innocent eyes and felt a wave of warmth wash over me. Because Uncle really likes Daisy. Daisy beamed with joy. I like Uncle too. At the apartment, Anna poured me a cup of tea and then sat with us in the living room. The atmosphere felt a bit awkward. Daisy seemed perfectly at ease, pulling out her toys to show me and asking me to play building blocks with her. Uncle, can you build a house? Sure, Uncle will build a beautiful house for Daisy to live in. We built blocks on the carpet, Daisy watching my every move intently. Uncle, your hands are so big. She compared them with her own little hands, but mine are the same shape as yours. Anna watched the scene unfold beside them, her expression complex. Time passed slowly, and the sky grew dark. Around 7 o'clock, the door lock clicked. Susan was back. She pushed open the door and saw me sitting in the living room playing with Daisy's building blocks. She froze in place. How are you here? Her voice trembled. I'm here to pick up my daughter. I stood up and looked at her. Susan's face went pale. She glanced at Daisy, then back at me. Anna, how could you let him in? Cousin, he said he wants to do a DNA test. Anna sounded hurt. What test? Susan shook her head vehemently. It's unnecessary. Daisy isn't his daughter. Then whose daughter is she? I closed in on her. Susan, how long are you going to keep lying? She is. Susan couldn't speak. Daisy, frightened by our argument, hid behind Anna. Mommy, why are you two fighting? Seeing the fear in Daisy's eyes, Susan sighed deeply. She walked over to the sofa, sat down, and buried her face in her hands. Bill, why can't you just leave us alone? Because Daisy is my daughter. I'm sitting right across from her. Susan, we both know the truth. Why keep up the charade? Susan lifted her head, her eyes brimming with tears. Even if she is your daughter, so what? You think I'd let the murderer of my father raise my child? I didn't kill your father, I said firmly. The real killer was Ethan. You know that deep down. No. Susan sprang to her feet. It was you. You ran over my father with your car. Susan, you know that's not true. I stood up too. That night, Ethan killed your father, then framed me for it. I detected midazolam in your wine glass, you should know exactly what that means. Susan's body began to tremble. I don't know what you're talking about. You know. I raised my voice. Susan, it's been 3 years, doesn't your conscience hurt? Daisy was frightened into tears. Mom, Uncle, please stop arguing. She ran crying to Susan's side. Susan picked up Daisy, tears falling down her face. Bill, please, leave us alone. We've already left that place, what more do you want? I'm taking Daisy with me. Impossible. Susan clutched Daisy tighter. Absolutely impossible. Then let's do a DNA test. I pulled out my phone. I'll call the hospital right now. No. Susan panicked, stopping me. Don't do the test. Her reaction said it all. If Daisy really wasn't my daughter, why was she so afraid of the test? Susan, what are you afraid of? I stared into her eyes. If the paternity test proves Daisy isn't my daughter, I'll disappear immediately and never show my face to you again. Susan cried even harder. Can't you just leave us alone? I can let you go, but I can't let my daughter go. My tone softened slightly. Susan, Daisy needs a father. You can't take away her right to have a complete family. A complete family? Susan gave a wry smile. Bill, do you really think a murderer can give Daisy a complete family? I'm not a murderer, I emphasized again. And even if I had made mistakes in the past, that shouldn't be your reason for stripping me of my fatherly rights. The room fell silent. Daisy, nestled in Susan's arms, whispered, "Mommy, is Uncle really my daddy?" Susan looked at Daisy, her eyes filled with pain. After a long pause, she finally spoke, "Yes, he is your daddy." The words exploded in the room like a bombshell. Anna stared at us in shock, while Daisy's eyes widened. "Really?" Daisy looked at me excitedly. "Uncle is really my dad?" My eyes welled up. "Yes, Daisy, I am your dad." Daisy broke free from Susan's embrace and ran to me. "Daddy." She opened her little arms and hugged me. It was the first time she'd ever called me daddy. I held her tiny body close, feeling the warmth of our shared blood. In that moment, I knew all the pain I'd endured had been worth it. After admitting the truth, Susan completely broke down. She sat on the sofa, tears streaming down her face. "Bill, I hate you," she whispered, her voice thick with resentment. "You're the person I hate most in this world." "Why do you hate me?" I asked, holding Daisy. "What did I do wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong." Susan wiped away her tears. "But if you hadn't come into my life, my father wouldn't have died." I fell silent. In a way, Susan was right. If I hadn't gotten involved with her, none of the tragedy that followed would have happened. "Susan, I'm so sorry you lost your father. I mean it sincerely, but it wasn't my fault, nor was it yours. It was Eason's fault." "I know," Susan's voice sounded weary. "Of course I know Eason killed my father. But I had no choice." "What do you mean?" "That night, after Eason killed my father, he threatened me. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd frame me for my father's murder." Susan looked up at me. "I had no choice but to pin it on you." I was stunned. "He threatened you?" "Yes." Susan nodded. "He said there were only 3 of us at the scene, that my father was already dead, and as long as we stuck to the same story, we could pin the blame on anyone." "Then why did you choose me?" My voice trembled slightly. "Because." Susan hesitated, "Because you've been drinking, and you just happened to be driving by." Eason said that's the most plausible explanation. A wave of dizziness washed over me. So that was it. I hadn't been betrayed by a lover, I'd been chosen by fate as a scapegoat. The money Eason gave you over those 3 years was hush money. Susan smiled bitterly. It was also compensation. He felt I sacrificed you for him, so he wanted to make it up to me. Then why did you take it? Because I'm pregnant. Susan stroked Daisy's head. I need money to raise her. And I hate you too. Hate me for what? For forcing me to make this choice. Pain flickered in Susan's eyes. If you hadn't shown up, I wouldn't have to choose between love and family. I understood Susan's pain. She loved me, yet to protect herself, she chose to sacrifice me. This guilt and self-loathing had tormented her for 3 years. "Susan, what's done is done," I said softly. "We can't change the past, but we can change the future." "Future?" Susan shook her head. "We have no future. Bill, I'll never forgive myself, nor will I ever forgive you." "What about Daisy?" I held the child tighter in my arms. "She's innocent." Susan looked at Daisy, her eyes filled with complex emotions. "I know she needs a father." She sighed deeply. "But I can't be with you. My father's blood stands between us." "I understand," I nodded. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, nor for us to be together again. I only hope to be there as Daisy grows up." Susan was silent for a long time. "Bill, what's your status now? I mean, legally speaking." I paused, then gave a bitter laugh. "A fugitive. Eason charged me with extortion. I'm currently a wanted person." "What?" Susan gasped. "How could he? He gave me 10 million, then had me sign an agreement admitting I'd accepted hush money. Then he reported me for extortion." I shook my head. This guy's more cunning than I thought. Susan's expression changed. "Then you're in serious danger now." "Yes." I looked at Daisy. "But I don't regret coming to see you." Susan stood up and paced back and forth across the room. "This can't go on." She stopped abruptly. "Bill, you must clear your name. Otherwise, you'll never be able to be with Daisy. How can I clear my name? I gave a bitter smile. The evidence is irrefutable, and I did take his money. That 10 million was a trap, not extortion. Determination flashed in Susan's eyes. Bill, I'm willing to testify in court. I froze. You're willing to testify? Yes. Susan nodded. I'll tell the judge the truth, everything that happened 3 years ago. But then you'll be implicated too, I said worriedly. You're guilty of concealing the facts back then. I know. Susan's voice was firm. But Daisy can't grow up without a father. And I don't want to keep running away anymore. I looked at Susan, my heart filled with mixed emotions. This woman had once betrayed me, yet now she was willing to sacrifice herself for our daughter. Susan, thank you. You're welcome. Susan shook her head. I'm not doing this for you, but for Daisy. Daisy was in my arms, watching us curiously. Daddy, Mommy, what are you talking about? I ruffled her hair. We're figuring out how to get Dad to spend more time with you. Really? Daisy clapped her hands excitedly. That's great. Seeing my daughter's innocent smile, I made up my mind. Susan, I'm going back to China. What? Susan gasped. Back to China? They'll arrest you. I know. I stood up. But I can't keep running away. I have to stand up for myself and fight for a bright future for Daisy. Then I'll go back with you, Susan said. No. I shook my head. You stay here and take care of Daisy. Once I've sorted things out, we'll discuss custody arrangements. Susan opened her mouth to speak, but in the end, she just nodded. Then be careful. I will. I crouched down and hugged Daisy. Daisy, Daddy has to do something very important. When Daddy's done, he'll come back and spend time with you, okay? What is it? Daisy clung to my neck, reluctant to let go. Daddy has to prove that Daddy is a good person. Dad was always a good man. Daisy said earnestly. My eyes welled up again. Yes, Dad wants everyone to know he was a good man. That very night, I booked my flight back home. Before leaving, Susan wrote me a letter detailing the truth about the incident 3 years ago and promising to testify in court. Bill, she said to me at the airport, whatever happens, thank you for giving me Daisy. I nodded and boarded the plane. On the flight back home, my mind raced with thoughts. Perhaps I would be imprisoned again, perhaps this time with a harsher sentence. But I had no regrets. Because I had found my daughter, and I had uncovered the truth. Most importantly, I had found a reason to keep fighting. For Daisy, I must prove my innocence. For Daisy, I must become a real father. When the plane touched down at the domestic airport, I saw Bob waiting at the exit. And the police beside him. I took a deep breath and walked toward them. Bill, you're finally back. Bob's eyes held both worry and relief. Yes, I'm back. I held out my hands for the police to cuff me. I'll defend myself.
Сделать 3 мегабита или 5 мегабит пока нормально. Кто скажет? Да. Маликасов, привет. Что делаем сегодня? Маликас, привет. Сегодня смотришь, как красота. Нигде это здесь оказался. Ну, классно как. Катаемся, смотри, какая погода. Просто офигенская, смотри. Это все в Вене, и это просто красота, просто сказка. Куда ни погляди, просто вот зимняя сказка. Не правда ли?
Туман был, и не красотищий и у нас.
У вас так же? Ну да. Ну вот сегодня я решил, я катался здесь на лыжах, ну, это, позавчера. Вот сейчас решил прокатиться здесь на велосипеде. Будет быстрее, чем на лыжах. Местами тут можно ехать по дороге, по общественной. Блин, кайф. Кайф. Вот тут можно уехать куда-то туда. Мы туда еще не ездили. Да, сейчас посмотрим. Да, мы туда не ездили. Можно туда уехать, съездить, покататься по этой дороге. Идем. Идем куда? На Машек. А, нет. Это мы куда уйдем? Там немножко смотрю.
Сегодня к реке сбегаю вечером.